Hello everyone, this is Sega Saturn Lad back with a long overdue review of another official Sega Saturn magazine, and this is issue 4 of the UK Sega Saturn magazine, and this originally come out in February 96, so currently it's February 2025. So this magazine is 29 years old. Doesn't time fly? So, just starting off with the front cover. Got Street Fighter Alpha, Legend of 4, Panzer Dragoon 2. So yeah, Panzer Dragoon 2, 1996, Year of the Dragon. Getting into the intro, or the contents, whatever you call it. So yeah, it's promoting more Panzer Dragoon, which was such a big game back in the day. So, the anticipated Sonic the Hedgehog. But this is Sonic the Fighters, not the Sonic that we were waiting for. Unfortunately, it never come to the Saturn. I do have it on the PlayStation 3 as a download. It's okay, it's a bit of a gimmicky kind of fighting game. It's not very similar to the usual Sega fighting games of that era, really. I suppose it's more inclined to be similar to Virtua Fighter Kids. But yeah, seems a strange one why they never brought it across when they included some of the fighters in Fighters Megamix. I mean, surely just getting any Sonic would have been beneficial to the Saturn's cause. So yeah, Sega Rally, best conversion for PAL. And I mean, whether or not it's the best conversion, I don't necessarily know, but I do, watching the Sega Rally video, the 4-hour epic by Pandemonium, the PAL version was one of the later ones coming out, I believe, and there were a lot of optimization for it. And anyone who's played the PAL version at 60 Hz knows that it doesn't play very well. It's very, very much in tune with the 50 Hz, which at the time was pretty rare, really. So you've got Yuji Naka, Yu Suzuki, Mr. Oshima, original designer of Sonic the Hedgehog. So when questioned over the actual movements of the characters in the Saturn title, I guess it's Sonic Fighters, Mr. Naka was also confident for the final results. Poses already terrific. Mr. Suzuki, that's good to hear. So yeah, Yuji Naka, he's a funny character, isn't he? He's been done for fraud, and a lot of stories have come out with him in the the years that have passed regarding his attitude and the kind of diva kind of behaviour that he was, basically thinking he was the Shigeru Miyamoto of Sega, when actually his input into Sonic wasn't minimal, but it was quite overstated, I think. And since he left Sega, his games have been, they've been very forgettable, really. Blink's the Time Sweeper, Balan Wonderland. He's done mobile games as well, so he's never really hit the heights of, his fame in the 90s, really. I think he is actually currently in prison in Japan for tax avoidance or failure to declare shares, I believe, or market abuse. One of the things, there's something financial, I know that. So Bug 2, yeah, it's a Bug 2, more of the same. Virtua Fighter animation. So you've got the High Saturn there, which is extremely rare. Actually had the TV screen as well, and I think this is from what I've seen since it, there was a proper one that actually come bundled or built into certain luxury cars in Japan. So a new version of the Saturn went on sale in the early part of December in Japan, created in conjunction with Hitachi. The Game & Navi High Saturn is a smaller Saturn with car navigation functions. Yeah, that was it. So it comes bundled with, like your Lexuses in Japan. And it obviously had very, very early sat-nav. But I look like anything retro goes for a absolute song these days. So you got the Virtua Cop or Virtua Death. Expecting to see one of those Corruption of the Young Storms headlines soon. Why? Because in America, where else? John Lynn, a business student, shot his wife, divorce lawyer, dead. And because he regularly played arcade games. So, okay. You know, back in the 90s, it was very much kind of these more violent games were the corruption of our generation, I guess. And time doesn't really change, does it? It's just the narrative changes. It's social media these days, isn't it? And I don't deny that social media has definitely, warped some kids' minds, but I would have thought back in the day, extreme violence in the games has probably warped some kids' minds as well. So, parents are parents, and, a level head is sometimes required in these sort of things. Manga hits CD. So obviously manga it's never called manga now, it's all anime, isn't it? But so manga has long been at the forefront of Japanese cartoons. So basically they are, I think they're just VCDs, aren't they? Yeah, on CD, so you can play them on your Saturn. Street Fighter 2, Ninja Scroll, Akira, pretty much some absolute classics of, the 90s anime. Ninja Scroll especially, Jesus, that is some death count in that, isn't there? Theme Park. Oh, so you got a demo CD, so bootleg sampler. So after the phenomenal response we've had with our cover-mounted CD in January, many of you have called in to ask, will this be a regular feature? The answer is yes. Doesn't mean every month. Well, in hindsight, it was pretty sporadic, really. Across 38 issues, there were 7 CDs. So it certainly wasn't like the PlayStation where it was every month guaranteed. And to be honest, as I've been doing the reviews of the demo CDs, the actual CDs are pretty recycled from the last issue. So you'll find that they would have, games that are sometimes a year old. There'd only be 2 or 3 demos that were playable. And looking back in hindsight, the PlayStation ones were pretty well packed out. There was often 7 to 8 playable demos, various videos. But again, it was reflective of the market, wasn't it? And, just wasn't to be. So in development, Magic Carpet. That did come out. That was a EA game. Again, never kind of played that. And World War II. Don't remember that. Remember the obscure World War game. So it looks like it's a Japanese only strategy game. That seems very popular. Virtua Fighter 2 CG portrait discs. So these did come out in Japan, and they were basically CG kind of digital photos of the characters of Virtua Fighter 2. So it was a bit of a quirk, but they did a release of every character in Virtua Fighter. You can pick them up today, and then they will set you no more than a couple of £1 each. And I think that you can pop them in a PC and print the CDs, the photos off. But yeah, just a kind of gimmick, really. But I suppose that CG was it was the thing back in the day, wasn't it? So Victory Gold 2, I don't think that come out. Victory Gold did. Congo, that was a terrible game, wasn't it? I know that was an American release. That didn't come out in Europe, and I think it was due to how bad it was received over there. Dead Heat. I think that is Shindoku Battle. Basically the Tokyo Highway Challenge games. I might be wrong on that. Augusta Golf, Gundam, Dragon Force. So Dragon Force did come out, but it was much later in the Saturn's life. That was a very, very late release on the Saturn, towards the end of the console's kind of lifespan. 97, I think it came out. So yeah, it's a good 18 months away from here. Augusta Golf, I don't think that did come out. So yeah, unlikely it did. So Sonic Boom. So again, this is just more about the arcade scene. yeah, so Sonic the Fighters. So Sonic Fighters didn't come out, but Funky Head Boxers did, which is crazy, really. I've got it myself, Funky Head Boxers, and it's more of a kind of it's an experience of its time. If you can pick it up for a couple of pounds, it's worth kind of delving into it. Or if you've got a Satiator or a Saru, give it a go. It's quite the experience. Banks TT. So again, that was a brand new release, and this came out again a good year after the Saturn release. So WWF, WWE, WrestleMania. This is actually a great game. Fantastic arcade midway, kind of one-on-one fire, but it's wrestling-esque, but it's like Mortal Kombat. I'm sure anyone who's watching this kind of has played this in some respect, whether it be the Mega Drive or SNES. But the Saturn version, from what I've seen comparisons, is generally seen as the best version in home comparisons. PlayStation version is very strong as well, but I think there's certain aspects that the Saturn does over it. But yeah, one that I need to actually pick up. It also, it's ridiculously expensive, the Japanese release. But now the PAL version is approaching nearly 100 quid. So yeah, I suppose grab it while you can, if you want to shell out £100 for it. But fantastic game. NFL Club Quarterback. Look, I'll be honest, my knowledge is pretty limited in NFL. These were kind of designed for the American market, weren't they? And they were just released as a niche product over here, weren't they? Shell Shock. I don't think that come out. Did that come out? Core. So again, Core were fantastic supporters of the Mega Drive and especially the Mega CD. You think of the games that they produced for the Mega CD. And, a lot of that support followed through the Saturn, more so with Tomb Raider being the first coming out on Saturn. But, unfortunately, I guess just this was another one that was cancelled. I don't recall it coming out. Might be wrong, though. Let me know. Bland Machine Head. Again, another Core design. This did come out. This is not a good game. You've got this bizarre kind of control system. It's basically a first-person shooter, but you control the character on a spaceship, kind of like hover, almost like a snowmobile kind of thing, but it hovers, and the world's been overtaken by this slime that's covered all of the land, and it's got it's not a good game. I suppose it's of its time. It's an early first-person shooter that's very rough, and obviously back when your characters had to have kind of BDSM kind of attire on as well, but yeah, strange game. So letters, these are always fun to kind of go back to, aren't they? Personally, I never wrote into any of these magazines. A few friends did, and I remember one friend actually got his letter published in Games Master. And, back in the day, you just usually got a kind of sarcastic response from the editors. I say it all the time, but this magazine was edited by Richard Ledbetter, who's the lead, I think he's the channel owner on Digital Foundry. So I think he's extremely well respected within the industry. And you can see even now, like the way this is written, it is like sometimes reading a Digital Foundry script. So these are more sort of questions. So just swap my PlayStation for a Sega Saturn. Could you please answer me the following? Is the Saturn more powerful? Is the Saturn as powerful as the PlayStation when it comes to 3D graphics? They've said, in its own special way, oh yes. When Wipeout comes out on the Saturn, will it be as good as PlayStation version? Let's hope so. It's quite ambiguous. Number 3, will Doom be coming out on the Saturn? Yes, in a few months. Yeah, so you get the gist. These Special Reserve, what a legendary company. Mail order. I think everyone of a certain generation remembers Special Reserve and has got a sort of special place in their heart for their kind of mailings and the bundles that they used to do. But if you look at the price of games, they haven't really changed a hell of a lot. If you think the average price is $39.99 and it's what, $49.99 these days, with inflation, it's not actually gone up a hell of a lot. So you can see why these developers, I know they're saying about Grand Theft Auto 6 being the first £100 game. But yeah, I suppose in relative terms, it's probably not far off. Double Dragon. So more Panzer Dragoon. Again, absolute stellar game. Probably one of the best looking games on the Saturn. Well, not probably, is one of the best looking games on the system. Very bespoke to the hardware. Does some fantastic kind of graphical effects with the Saturn sort of chipset in terms of like the infinite tiles and the planes that it can display, and those kind of views into the horizon that weren't sort of possible on the other consoles of the time, that, you know, only the Saturn could kind of do, really. Look, I'm not a developer, I'm not a programmer, I've only known what I've seen, but, you know, it is very, very special game, really. You would have thought maybe if, maybe I guess it might be more appealing to a Western audience if it was more, I don't know, maybe military based. You know, you controlling maybe a helicopter or an F-16 or something of that ilk. But it would lose its charm a little bit. Maybe it might have appealed to a wider audience if it was less fantasy driven. But I don't know. But it was kind of just. I do actually remember hiring this from, at the time, the local Blockbuster. And I remember being blown away by it. I could only get to I think it's the 4th level when you go underground, to like the sub-nautical stage. And yeah, even then, graphically, like the transparencies, the water effects, the lighting effects, look fantastic. If you've never played it, it's definitely one to pick up. You know, if you're new to Saturn, definitely one of the first games that anyone should kind of pick up. Averaging probably about £40, I'd imagine these days, for a boxed and complete version. So it's not massively expensive, but it is a big step up from the original. So again, just more Panzer Dragoon 2. You can tell they really filled the the publications out with features. Nuclear Fission. So this is Darius, isn't it? Not my favourite shoot 'em up. I do find it extremely hard, but it is a classic, isn't it? And this was really the first time that you're actually getting kind of, these arcade games from the 80s and early 90s were coming home, pretty much spot on. So Sega Rally. This really was the game that sort of showed that the Saturn had the chops graphically. It just needed the certain je ne sais quoi. And this is what I love about this magazine. It is literally, to go back and read a lot of these interviews with these actual Japanese developers, some of them are no longer alive, and be able to kind of read more about it from a more, I don't know, I wouldn't say an adult perspective, but a more, rounded perspective than what we know now. Because back in the day, we didn't necessarily, we were kids, so a lot of it was quite technical and we didn't really understand a lot of it. But, it was fantastic. They don't kind of beat around the bush in terms of, asking the difficult questions. And I think that, again, some of these guys that have gone to Japan have come out on Twitter and said, they didn't appreciate at the time going over to Sega HQ and actually having that one-to-one time with, Japanese devs. At the time, they just took it for granted. So what's this? Tales from the Crypt. So this is that's the Mystery Mansion of Hidden Souls, I think. Yeah, it is. So it's kind of like similar to like the old Mega CD full motion video games, but it's all CG rather than character driven. Sorry, not character, like actor driven. I've never played it myself. It's not really my kind of thing. But from what I know, I think it's meant to be a better example of the kind of type of game. I think Toriko, it might have been Toriko? Toriko? Yeah, I think it's Toriko over here, actually. Yeah, so computer and video games. So this was a magazine. I mean, I'm sure, again, many of you guys know this was a very, very long-running magazine in the UK from really the Spectrum days. And it went on for years and years and years. So issue 171. So you can already tell, what's that, 15, 17 years gone. And I only think it actually ended kind of PS3, literally on the verge of PS4 coming out. You know, just as magazines were kind of winding down, multi-format stuff wasn't really selling. So it did just kind of, you know, wrap up. These are pretty cool. So you've got like a Sega Saturn Launch Crew t-shirt. You got a Jackie cuddly toy. They're pretty cool. You know, you'd imagine they'd probably be worth a few quid now. Vampire Hunter or Darkstalkers, Street Fighter Alpha. Did have Street Fighter Alpha again. That was actually one of my games that I did own. And yeah, that was one of the games that really sort of, from a 2D perspective, really showed the step up from kind of things like the SNES and Mega Drive to, you know, it was like watching a cartoon, really. You can't kind of overstate just how eye-popping it was, really. Single cell reproduction. Oh, what is this? So I think this is an overview of Saturn adverts. This is American based. Yeah. And then these were the UK ones, I think. No, because you had the Ice Cube, didn't you? Yeah, it's a Time Attack, Sega Rally. Daytona reviews. Wing Arms, 82. Like a dogfight kind of simulator. FIFA 96, 80%. It's not bad going, to be fair. I mean, you know, a lot of these games are quite clunky these days. But they've got a certain charm. I think the only one that's really kind of stood the test of time is International Superstar Soccer. Any version, you know, the International Superstar Soccer Pro, ISS 98, PlayStation, fantastic games. They still do play extremely well. Virtual Golf. This has got a really funky kind of cover art to it. And I always remember when old school YouTuber Shock16 was buying his Saturn full collection, and he made a really valid point, a really good point, that the box art on this game is like a throwback to the Commodore 64, when you know, they had like artists drawing cover art, and yeah, really true. Johnny Bazooka Tone, US Gold, 53%. I think this is just kind of like a cheesy run and gun. I've not played it, but yeah, kind of an unusual art style, I guess, almost like an Elvis impersonator. Oh, Toshinden. So I actually think that this game did more damage than good coming to the Saturn, because it was a direct comparison to the PlayStation version when it was specifically developed on the PlayStation, so it's naturally going to make use of those features. And when they converted it to the Saturn, it just didn't fare very well. So this was always one of the games that, it had texture map polygons, and you know, Virtua Fighter didn't, but the gameplay on it was pretty dog shit, to be honest. And yeah, it was always one that had a direct comparison. It was always one that was seen as, you know, a comparison between the PlayStation and Saturn. But again, looking back, all those games were specifically designed for the PlayStation, so they're never gonna potentially make use of the Saturn when it's, you know, as tricky as it was. Siberia. I'm not really too familiar with this one. Not one I've actually played or owned. Casper. Casper the Friendly Ghost. So this is based on the film, isn't it? I mean, I remember Casper as a kid, and you know, back in the 90s, you would get these old 1940s, 1950s kind of Disney, Warner Brothers films, not films, cartoons, on Saturday and Sunday mornings. You know, they certainly don't show them now, but you know, probably offend too many people with stereotypes. But yeah, Casper the Friendly Ghost. I remember the cartoons as a kid, and I remember I did watch the film, but yeah, it's actually, from what I know, it's not meant to be that bad. I think it's kind of like a, I wouldn't say a dungeon crawler, but like a, that kind of ilk of game. D. So again, another, these are warp games, aren't they? And you know, they're all, there's D2 on the Dreamcast, isn't it? That isn't a full motion video game. That's actually more of like a first person, from what I understand. Again, not necessarily my kind of thing. True Pinball. I guess it's pinball, really. It's the best game on Saturn regarding pinball is Necronomicon, which was Japanese release only. World Cup Golf, 68%. Golf's golf, isn't it? They can be very, very good games, though. I will say that. I think one of my most played games on the Switch is actually 2K21 PGA. Virtua Fighter 2. So again, back in these days, to fill out the magazine, they would write loads of things about, you know, cheats and hints and tips, because this was the only way that we ever really got to see them. Half the stuff was just hot air. Not so much in the official magazines, more certainly the unofficial. I always remember me and a friend trying to control the blue whale in Echo the Dolphin, and you know, entering these silly codes, having to, you know, reset your Mega Drive. It was just nonsense. But yeah, Virtua Fighter 2, what a legendary game. So tips, so you got FIFA 98, 96 rather, Thunderhawk 2, Virtua Cop, Toshinden Mist. Game of the month, Virtua Fighter 2. It was always, I mean, that's a, you know, that's the toss of a coin between Virtua Fighter 2 or Sega Rally. Personally, I'll go Sega Rally, because it is, I think it's the best game on the system. But Virtua Fighter 2 is, you know, as a technical showpiece, awesome. Virtua Racing, again, this version of it got a lot of stick in the 90s when it came out. Again, I'm going to shout him out again, Pandemonium, and his documentary on this one. The developers were literally given an arcade machine. They weren't given any kind of coding from Sega, and literally were told to copy the arcade machine just by playing it. So yeah, they were kind of on to hide into nothing, but they really put a lot of additions into it in terms of like different cars, lots of tracks that were not in the original. I think personally the best version of it is the 32X, discounting the kind of Switch downloadable one. Mystaria Galactic Attack, that's a fantastic game. That is layer section. You've got 3 stars, but a lot of these games kind of, you know, they're more appreciative as time goes on, really. Also out, so you've got, you know, current releases, CDs. So you've got Rocky soundtrack, Pink Panther, Octopussy. That is a terrible, terrible James Bond film. If you've ever seen Octopussy. Roger Moore at his best next month. So yeah, Wipeout. That's the big game. How's it going to compare? Let's find out. So yeah, more of these kind of mail order kind of shops. Very similar to Special Reserve gameplay. Johnny Bazooka Tone. So yeah, that was Sega Saturn issue 4. Ta-ta for now.